Fox News has been running with this narrative, and I have an example of this from Fox News' The Five, where Greg Gutfeld gives his take on New York City and it being dangerous and terrible and this hellscape. And it's something we've heard a lot within the conservative world, right-wing media, Fox News specifically, that New York is this perfect example of what goes horribly wrong when Democrats are in power in a particular place. And it's inaccurate, and I want to talk about the facts in just a bit. But first, here's Greg Gutfeld on The Five.
In terms of New York, people are leaving because the left emptied the prisons and reduced the likelihood of felons serving time. So they completed half their equation, which in their altruistic world was to have fewer minorities in jail, but they didn't have the other half of the equation. So now you have freed criminals and unpunished felons, free from the carceral state, but now preying on people in the neighborhoods. They're robbing, they're raping, they're stabbing. So we're the subject of this experiment. And I think people are leaving because they just can't tell who the nice people are anymore. It used to be you could go on the side, there'd be four kids on bicycles. Oh, they're going to sell you candy. No, they're going to surround your car and they're going to beat you. That's what happened. New York is now.
Greg, did you get beat up by kids?
Now the Russian roulette, right? And this goes back to, I said it a million times, you can't have a one-party city, especially if the one party is a Democrat. Husband needs a wife, a slobby bachelor needs somebody to get him in shape. And the problem is there's nobody to create friction between the Democrats and their bad ideas. Somebody has to be there to slow them down. That's the wife who tells the husband, no, you can't put a kiddie pool in the basement. You need somebody to stop the crazy ideas. And all the Republicans have left. Yeah. So all you have are the crazy people.
So you've heard stuff like that quite often, I'm sure. And I just want to walk through some bits of information maybe they would be fascinated to know. Obviously, likely Greg Gutfeld doesn't want to interact with this information. But before we do that, I just want to note up front, this is not me saying Democratic areas don't have problems with crime or those aren't something that should be addressed, or there isn't criticism that's warranted for particular Democratic leaders and areas and policy decisions they made. Not at all. But if we're going to have that conversation, it needs to be an honest one, and it needs to be looking at crime across the board, and it needs to accept the facts of crime in different areas, and to understand the complexities of how policy affects crime, we got to be honest about the problem. As I always say, you can't be honest about a solution if you're dishonest about the problem. And that's what those on The Five, Greg Gutfeld specifically, are doing there, developing a narrative for the viewers that see Democrats create unsafe places. So to dive into some of the information, and the way I'll kind of present this is, it's interesting that Greg Gutfeld isn't concerned with this, and then I'll walk through what I mean by this. But starting with a comparison of a red city and New York City, which is a difficult discussion to have because, and this is why it's their favorite line, of these big Democratic cities are so unsafe, when the big cities just, for the most part, are Democratic. So having a sample size that is significant of Republican big cities and Democratic big cities to compare is kind of impossible, because most of them, based on population density affecting the way people vote, most of them are going to be Democratic. But picking a red city that is sizable, Oklahoma City, and comparing it to New York City, you see that Oklahoma City, this red city, has much higher violent crime and much higher property crime, as I'm showing on screen, significantly higher. It's interesting Greg Gutfeld's not interested in that, because I'm interested in both, and I want to figure out policy solutions to both. Greg Gutfeld is only concerned with New York City, that actually has less of a problem than one of those red cities he is likely very complimentary of. And then something we've talked about a good bit, the murder rate. When you look at the top 10 highest states in terms of murder rate, 8 out of 10 of them, again, as I'm showing on screen, podcast listeners, you can't see this, but it's listed Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama. 8 out of 10 of them are red states: Missouri, Arkansas, South Carolina, Tennessee, Maryland, Illinois, and New Mexico. So the 8th spot and the 10th spot are blue states. Other than that, all red states. And it's not to say, ha ha, or anything like that. No, I care about people in every one of those states. I care about solutions for those people in every one of those states. But let's just be honest about the reality. As I'm willing to do, I don't know if Greg Gutfeld is. But it's interesting he's not talking about that reality, right? Because if it was reversed, those stats would be getting thrown up on screen every single day on Fox News, instead of their little videos of whatever, a crime taking place in New York City. And then I'll give you here from Yahoo News, Republican politicians routinely claim that cities run by Democrats have been experiencing crime waves caused by failed governance. But a new study shows murder rates are actually higher in states and cities controlled by Republicans, and it gives some examples of the Republican talking points, and then we get to, but a comparison of violent crime rates in jurisdictions controlled by Democrats and Republicans tells a very different story. In fact, a new study from the center-left think tank Third Way shows that states won by Trump in the 2020 election have higher murder rates than those carried by Joe Biden. The highest murder rates, the study found, are often in conservative rural states. The study found that murder rates in the 25 states Trump carried in 2020 are 40% higher overall than in the states Biden won. The 5 states with the highest per capita murder rate, Mississippi, Louisiana, Kentucky, Alabama, and Missouri, all lean Republican and voted for Trump. And the reason why presidential voting is just kind of an easy way across the board so that you can map that out, and then it generally reflects the on-the-ground leadership within those states as well. But all of that information is not something Fox News viewers are ever exposed to. And I do think that's a significant sign that Republican policies don't work in so many different areas. We also see that poverty disproportionately is more severe in a lot of these red states. And none of that is to say the problem is any less meaningful, no, or that we don't want to address it, or that, like I said, we're making fun of. It's to recognize the reality so that we can address with good solutions these very problems. And we really can't talk about solutions honestly if we're trying to craft a dishonest narrative that it's the horrible Democratic Party that causes all of this crime. It just is not the case. 40% higher murder rate in states that voted for Trump that are generally considered to be red states. Why isn't the 5 doing any stories on that? I think we all know exactly why.